moving on.
Yes, I don't think there's anything else to touch
Rings
on.
of Power episode 6. In
Yes.
my opinion, the best episode we've had so far.
Agreed.
And it did what we were begging them to do last week of starting to get some of these stories to link together.
So, off the rip, I'm going to say this episode of Rings of Power is everything that everyone has been wanting from this show. And if you have been on the fence up until this point, I don't believe that you... I believe this will have shifted. Anyone that was on the fence will now really be in love with this show after that episode. And I think anyone that is still hasn't watched it because they kind of don't want to ruin this perception they have of Lord of the Rings and stuff, honestly, give it a chance. Like, I do think it builds up to what everyone wants it to be. Visually and cinematically, and the story in this episode, I feel, was all great and everything that a Lord of the Rings show should be. I was so blown away by this episode.
So I do have a couple of issues, however.
Oh, here we go.
My main issue, there's one a little bit further down as well, but my main issue, during the start of the battle, once they're in, like, back in the village, and they're waiting for the orcs to attack the village, it seems really weird to me that you'd give up a tower, which is designed to be a point that you can hold, and then go to a village where, in reality, they could attack from a lot of different directions. Ignoring that, when Arondir's up on the roof, shooting his bow and arrow,
Yes.
how the fuck did he not hear the orcs climbing up behind them? I thought elves are supposed to have stupid good hearing.
I would imagine that situation more so might be because of how much was going on.
I'm sorry, if you get to live for thousands and thousands of years, this super hearing, you better learn how to know what's close, what's far away. Otherwise, what's the fucking point?
True. I think him getting snuck
I just
up on
think
was
it's a
bit...
tiny little thing that I noticed as I was watching it in full speed. The guy sneaking up and stabbing him alongside Arondir. I'm like, I'm sorry, he should have been able to hear that, surely. And my opinion for this stuff has always been, if I can notice it in the moment, it's a problem.
I'm trying to think if there was, like, what was just before that moment, and if there was a situation with Bronwyn, whether he got distracted.
I don't think so. I think he was just firing arrows at the ones in, like, the killing circle they created. Like I say, it's not the biggest thing, so I just found it a bit weird.
All I'd say about the tower is, I don't think... well, to me, it's not that bad of an idea to give that up, because it was a very good trap, especially when they didn't know how many they were dealing with, and you don't want to get stuck in that place and not having an escape plan. So I actually think it was a good... I really enjoyed that whole fight on the tower with
the sequence was phenomenal. I was just confused. I was like, you've got a tower up on a big old hill. Is that not, like, the best vantage point possible?
Here's the way I look at it, right? You've got one elf.
I have the high ground, Adar.
You have one elf who can fight and fight off a lot. Then you got a bunch of villagers that you have no idea if they're going to actually be able to fight anything. And it's like, holding a tower with a group of capable people, sure. But when you don't want the villagers to die, you don't want to put them in kind of danger where they probably would. It's like, well, we could use the tower as a trap, and that kind of makes a bit more sense. But that whole fight sequence where he took out the tower gave me very much Legolas vibes.
100%. Question.
Yes.
I've dubbed him the Super Orc.
I've named him the boss.
Oh, okay, cool. Have we seen Super Orc before?
No.
Or was that something they've just gone, we need a bigger one for Arondir to fight?
Definitely they wanted him to have, like, a one-on-one with...
Okay, cool.
The boss. I wonder if it's their way of kind of... Because obviously, the orcs we get in Lord of the Rings have... I forget their actual name. obviously are bigger and burlier. And I'm wondering if this is them trying to show that like some of those are starting to exist now, because they're like a generational like bread thing.
Got you, got you, got you.
But yeah, there's a couple of things at the start of the show. Like there's a point. It opens with Adar is burying seeds,
Yes.
which is like he's doing very secretively, and we don't really know what he's doing. We just see him burying seeds. And in my head, I was like, I wonder if they're the same seeds that Arondir has. And then later on, we see they share the same moment, and it's an elven tradition. So I like the fact that a bit of Adar is still holding on to his elven heritage and is like doesn't want to let that fully go yet and actually accept what he's become. Also, the fact that Arondir and Bronwyn, he gave her 2, 1 for each of them. Adar buried a fuck ton as if he was also doing it for the orcs, even though they're not elves, to like try and protect them.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was a nice little detail.
Yeah, it shows that he genuinely cares about the orcs in a really weird way.
Yeah, like genuinely does.
After my note about fight against Super Orc was lit, was where I, as I told you before we started recording, I clearly thought I was hilarious as I was writing these notes.
There we go.
So after the first wave of battle, bearing in mind I write these live, so like I don't have context at this point, I wrote, villagers forgot to grab totems of undying like idiots, which of course is a Minecraft reference, because I was like, oh, the village has been attacked and they... And then my next comment is, that joke now seems to be in bad taste.
So I put, my note at that whole point was like, villagers do all right. Arondir fights the boss one-on-one, saved by Bronwyn, SW. That was my note for that scene. But can we also talk about like how brutal that fight was where he had one-on-one with the whole eye just gushing blood?
So like where the camera is like the monitor I was watching on. I was sat here like this, like getting ready to turn away if the knife did go into Arondir's eye, because I'm too squeamish for that. So I was here like, okay, I can duck out and not watch.
I was like, damn. And then I actually thought it was going to be Theo that stabbed the boss.
So did I at first. I thought it was going to be Theo who saved him to complete that kind of like father-son bonding.
And then I was like, my next note is, oh wait, some of the villagers, some of the orcs are actually the villagers. And then I put wave 2 starts, like zombies.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So we were both going for video game references.
Yeah.
So I wrote that and I was like, do I just delete that now that I know it's in bad taste, or do I make a joke about the fact that it's in bad taste, bearing in mind these people aren't real?
I did like the whole, because you were definitely like I was fully invested with the fact that, oh shit, they've actually fucking fought them off. Part of me was like, that felt a little easy, but I was like, okay, they've managed it. And then you see like red blood on the first body that's like just on the ground. You can see that it's red blood, and I was like, oh shit, it's the villagers. I was like,
the color grading of that scene so that the red was popping was really good.
I was like, as soon as I saw the red blood, I was like, ah shit, this has all been a bait. This is all a trap. And then yeah, half of them, I don't think they were all, like, they definitely weren't all villagers, because there was some shots where like we full on saw orcs.
Yeah.
But there was definitely like a mix, and it was all a big bait. And then round 2 happens, just a fucking volley of arrows, which kind of then led into eventually they gets around and they fucking lose. The other brutal scene where they're inside the tavern.
And they're doing like the surgery on the fucking Bronwyn.
When Adar's there and he's like, "Where's the sword?" and Arondir won't tell him,
killing people,
and we get like full on shots held where like someone's getting stabbed in the gut, and I genuinely was like, "This feels like I'm watching Game of Thrones." And I know you haven't watched Game of Thrones, but you know the premise of everyone talks about how
brutality.
Yeah. I was like, this feels like Game of Thrones, not Lord of the Rings. I'm not against it. It just, like, this is a very brutal Lord of the Rings compared to what we used to.
I think that ability to just have them couple of scenes where you go, fucking hell, it adds to it. If it's just always very brutal, you have to keep it at that level. But just having them scenes occasionally where it's very brutal, you find yourself going, oh shit, serious.
Yeah, and I'm like, I know some people might have a bit of an issue with it, because like Lord of the Rings isn't generally like this brutal.
Yeah.
Or at least what we have experienced and known. And even in writing, I don't know if it necessarily goes that detailed on stuff. But I think it's a really good way to sell like this rise of Mordor and how brutal this like and how dark this area is going to become. Just like really putting into it like this is a force that is growing and is like not giving a shit.
Then we get our like sparing shots of the Númenóreans on their horses riding in
across a field, and you think, "Oh, it's daytime."
Yeah. I would like to point out, last week or the week before, I called them Númenóreans, and I was like, I don't know if that's correct, but this is what I'm dubbing them. The subtitles did confirm they're Númenóreans.
Fair enough.
When they're riding into the village and they're like slinging orcs everywhere, the subtitle was just simply Númenóreans battle cry or something like that. Númenóreans yelling, and I'm like, I was right.
So I know
so
last week I talked about the fact, and I have a couple of times about how Numenor is meant to have this like great like army and meant to feel like they have this strong army. And I was like, it doesn't really feel like they do. That when they cut to that scene of them just like all charging across the field, I was like, okay, this actually feels like what Numenor's army should feel like. Like this feels like a force coming in, and I think we got some amazing, like that whole battle sequence when they arrive. We got some amazing like moments with Galadriel on the horse and like her like
Galadriel was a fucking show off, bro.
Yeah,
you're throwing a spear at me. Let me just upside down on my horse
and then chop your head off. Yeah, like full on like
she's
elven like top level of
shithousery.
Yeah,
let's call it what it is. It was shithousery.
And the fact that like when it all calms down a bit, and then she asks Arondir who the leader is, and he points that. But like Arondir has that whole like, that's the leader of the Northern Elven army. Well, it's like he's even in awe of like, oh shit.
Well, here's my note for when Theo comes over to him and asks him that. To prove Theo is a teenage boy, he is instantly interested in Galadriel. Because he proper came over with the, who's that?
Well, even Arondir is like, holy shit.
Arondir's in disbelief. He's like, maybe Bronwyn ain't got that back like I thought she did.
Oh, dear. But obviously he points out Adar and like she chases Adar.
Which again was a really cool scene.
That there's a moment with that where she like leans down and whispers to the horse. That is the exact same phrase that Arwen says to her horse in Lord of the Rings when she's being chased by the ring wraiths and she's trying to get Frodo to safety. It's the exact same like little phrase. Kind of that little tie-in was nice. I enjoyed that. And then we obviously get Halbrand fucking knocks the horse down. But don't worry, horse is okay. Got back up.
I'll be honest. I was like, what the fuck did the horse do?
I thought he was gonna spear the horse.
Yeah, so did I. And it is really weird that we will always go to defending animals, and I get that. But like, the horse doesn't have a choice.
Well, it's also because like horses, especially, I feel in culture and like people have talked a lot more about like horses getting injured and then having to be put down. It's not fair on the horse. So it's like whenever you see like a horse gets knocked down in a film, it's gonna be like, animal people might come for the show.
It was interesting to find out that Adar and Halbrand have history.
Yes, I also thought it was kind of funny though. He's like, "Do you remember me?" And he's like, "No." Typical Thanos vibes.
Yeah, it gave me big. I was gonna say Kang vibes. It gave me big Kang vibes.
Oh, it was like Thanos when
God, you took everything from me.
He's like, I don't know who you are.
I don't even know who you are. Yeah.
I also am now leaning away from Halbrand. I find it hard to believe Halbrand is Sauron, like we've kind of touched on, because of how much
King of the South.
It's just how much he's saving, helping these people and saving some of them. Like he saves Elendil with this when he's getting overrun by the orcs. He spears one, doesn't he, in the middle of the fight? It's like too much stuff like that.
He can't be turned.
So, well, the theory is that he's not actually Sauron, but he's the what they call? Is it called the Lich King or the Wraith King?
Is that not World of Warcraft Lich King?
Yeah, but I don't know if it's also used. It might be Wraith King but
I swear to God, the fantasy genre has like 3 names for things, and they refuse to not share.
Well, liches are like a certain thing, but there's the Wraith King. I think is someone that Isildur cursed for doing wrong against like the men and people. So there's a theory that Halbrand does do something maybe for himself or against like actually helping, and he gets cursed and he becomes the Wraith King instead. Is a theory I'm seeing.
What I do have to bring up, however,
Okay.
is some very problematic behavior from Galadriel.
Oh.
When she's interrogating Adar,
okay. I know which bit you're on about.
Like the way she was talking, I'm like, "Ayo, bro, I'm starting to root against you here because you are an old white person going up against a minority here." It just had proper like Trump 2022 vibes.
There's a few things from that like interrogation thing. One being there's the bit where Galadriel says she gets very dark at one point, and she's like, why don't I bring out your children, the orcs, into the sun? And then she's like, I'm gonna hunt down and kill every last one of them till you're the last one alive, and then I'll kill you. And I like that the show even like acknowledges the fact that was getting dark, because Adar then goes, maybe your pursuit for darkness should have stopped in the mirror or in your reflection. Yeah. And it's like the show's understanding that the way that Galadriel is acting is very dark at the moment, and she kind of needs to realize that's not the right path.
Like, yeah, she was like, "You're an abomination. I'm going to wipe you from the plane of existence." I'm like, "Hey, bro." The only people who've said shit like that in the history of the world have not wrong side.
Yeah, I think that she's like, it's probably been pushed a bit harder than it needs to be, but I do also think it's the show trying to be like, she's going to have this kind of realization and kind of correction. But we also got Adar saying that he killed Sauron. Now, this very much can be true, because as we know, Sauron is immortal, whether he has a physical body or not. So like Adar could actually think that yes, he has killed him, but all he's done is destroy the mortal body and Sauron will be back. We also don't know though, because like we can't really trust Adar.
Who knows anything?
He is the bad guy. So we'll see. I think that would line up a bit more if he has thought that he's killed Sauron, which is why he's like feels he's the leader now, because he thinks no one's above him. There's no one more powerful than him. Also then gives a reason why like everyone's trying to predict who Sauron is, but like if he hasn't got a physical body at the moment, then yeah, he could reappear at any point.
And now we come on to my second issue with the show.
Oh, okay.
How the fuck did they switch the key? When did we even?
So,
there's unless I literally missed something. So we don't a gaping plot hole.
Okay, so we didn't physically. There is a gap of time we don't see. Between Adar getting on the horse and him stepping out of the tavern, because so we see him come out of the tavern. He goes to Waldreg.
Tenuous at best, though. No.
Considering we see a thing when he says to Waldreg, "I have a task for you." And then
we do.
Like we got that, and then we don't see Waldreg ever again. And because so much is going on, you kind of forget about the fact that we haven't seen Waldreg die, we haven't seen him get captured. And like I didn't even think of him. And then the next thing, like we get Adar's jumping on a horse and then gets chased, and no one chooses to unwrap it, which I think is the wild thing. Like no one unwrapped it earlier.
And why is Theo not like losing his mind once he realizes it's no longer
there? Because Theo's clearly proven to us that he's not very he ratted out where the sword was. He's not been very trustworthy in the past. It doesn't
No, but
surprise me
like
that
he
he's like,
wants to be trustworthy, so I don't understand why when he's opened that he hasn't gone, "Hey, yo, Arondir, this isn't my sword. I mean the sword."
I feel like because I do actually think part of him didn't want to like actually get rid of the sword.
No, but he didn't have the sword. Is my
Yeah,
point.
I know, but like him unwrapping and realizing he doesn't have the sword and doesn't have to be seen to get rid of it. Also, then is kind of like for that person, you'd be like, oh shit, I don't have to actually get. Like, if I'm Theo and I'm like, don't want to get rid of the sword, and you realize you don't actually have the sword, that is a very good way to make everyone think you've got rid of the sword when you haven't. Like, he could not tell anyone and wrap it back up and be like, yeah, I got rid of it, we're chill, and then just try and figure out how to find the sword later, wherever it actually is, because he knows it hasn't been destroyed or like got rid of. Is one thought about it. Also, I think it happens like very quickly, sort of after he realizes he didn't have the sword.
And I am assuming I'm right that that was literally Mount Doom being turned on.
Yes. So
I never realized Mount Doom had non-switch. I've got to be honest with you.
So in the books, from my understanding, I don't know if it erupted. I don't know if this is a slight step away from the books. I know it erupts obviously at one point, but I thought it erupted when it was kind of like as a signal to be like it's Sauron's here and ready to actually fight now, not like right at the beginning, if that makes sense. Like they kind of built things up and then it erupted. But them having it erupt off the rips, actually not, I don't think, a bad thing. I like the way that they did it and like to show that it was kind of like, you need this volcano to erupt that has been dormant. And it's like, what is a good way to kind of sell that being the start of an evil thing is like having someone know a way to cause it to happen. The fact that like all those tunnels we were trying to figure out what the fuck they were digging to were just canalways for the water. I actually don't think maybe that switch was like it must have been like a hidden because obviously it opened the dam, but without the dug tunnels, it doesn't do anything, right?
Yeah.
So it's got to be that sort of thing where it's like maybe it was known that you could open the dam, but like obviously everyone's just like, well, you never would, but if it's there, if it's built in for some need if you ever needed it. Not knowing that there's like this secret other bit of information of
no,
like you've got to
because
dig out the tunnels.
well, the key was still like the key that Morgoth had left behind or Sauron had left behind, whoever it was.
True. So
So
yeah, it was
like it
obviously
was
a
clearly designed for that.
Yeah, it was just
But
like if
I
I
guess the
guess
best way to hide a plan is to not have all of it ready.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
we've
like
got this dam that we can open now, but only my followers will know where to dig.
and also like I guess normal people are just like okay, the dam looks like it could be opened. There's some sort of mechanical bit there, but we don't. No one has any idea how to open it. So it's just old tech. Doesn't matter. We don't want it open anyway. I love the fucking CGI of that volcano exploding,
But are we going to
erupting.
talk about the irony of the Numenorians turning up and then there being a flood?
That is a slight connection, I think, to the future of Numenor.
Because I can't imagine anywhere in the text it says that, oh, they opened a dam and it went through some tunnels and that caused Mount Doom to erupt.
Oh no,
I imagine that was a little bit of creative freedom.
That was, I think it was their way of like, they obviously wanted it to start with, they want to show the start of Mordor with the volcano erupting and it going dark. And it's like, well, how do you lead up to that? Obviously played into that whole idea. And the final scenes we see is like Adar's not in his chains anymore. He's escaped as the barn gets like engulfed in flame. Also, I saw people saying, oh, Galadriel's not, no elf could even survive that. Look at the people of Pompeii. And then I actually saw, there's a thing online, someone was saying, well, actually, the first kind of part of an eruption. I think it's called pyroclastic flow or something, when it's mainly debris and it's actually not as hot. The person was like, yes, a general person isn't really going to want to be stood in it. It's not going to be pleasant, but it's not Pompeii level of heat where like people just got vaporized or fucking destroyed.
It looked more like an ash cloud rolling out ahead of all of the bad shit.
Yeah, and it will be hot and there will be like embers and fire in it, but like it's not
Well, we've got to
instant
remember
destruction.
we've got at least 3 characters who have plot armor.
Well, yeah.
Galadriel, Isildur, and
Elendil,
Isildur.
Isildur, and Galadriel.
Yeah, they all have to live.
Yep.
So they were all in that village. Therefore, whatever that was clearly isn't deadly.
Yeah, it will have probably killed off some of those like
Yeah, but that would
side
be more
people.
from knocking shit over.
But I think the bigger thing is like Waldrick is up in the tower. Like he's still at large. Adar escaped, so they're obviously going to reconnect. Whatever orcs managed to escape. Obviously, we saw Maldoom erupt. So this is the start of Mordor.
So do you reckon next week we get a
We'll be back to the dwarves and the hobbits.
dwarves and the Harefoots?
I think you'll get the Harefoots will. I don't know where they are currently, but they will see that they'll see that it's erupted. Like from wherever you are in Middle Earth,
becomes the Shire.
Yeah, wherever you are in Middle Earth, like you'll see. I imagine they'll see whether it's just smoke or something and they'll be like, "Oh, when this happens in the book, look, when there's a volcano erupting, it means this bad omen and all this shit." I wonder if the cultists might catch up to them.
Yeah, I forgot about the cultists.
And then on the dwarf elf side of things, I wonder if they'll go to investigate.
Maybe.
Because obviously the Númenóreans, as we are dubbing them, the Númenóreans, whoever survive, are going to set up camp somewhere. I wonder if like we'll finally kind of, because we've had that the men and the Númenóreans, their storylines have converged along with Adar and the orcs. We kind of now need Elrond and Durin and the dwarves and that. We need that to also join into the thing and kind of all come together. So I think next week we'll get that. I don't know. I think the hobbits are always going to stay separate, but by the end of this season, we'll know maybe who the stranger is. Because there's also that.
Awesome.